Okay, I'm actually going to hide my screen for a second because I just want to mention one thing before we get into looking at the slides. And that is that this presentation will be an interactive presentation. The whole idea here is that as we come together, we want to really make this interactive as much as possible. Collectively on this call, you will have hundreds of years of experience and exposure to Krishna consciousness. One of the things that one of my Shiksha gurus was often mentioning, His Holiness Satchidananda Maharaj, is that we hear so much. And that's actually a problem, because it's easy to just hear a class, hear another class, hear another class, but we don't digest it so much. And what we're trying to do in this session is to start to do more of that digesting. And that will happen by our full participation on the call. We tend to remember about 70% what we experience. We tend to remember about 80% what we discuss. Actually, it's the other way around. We remember about 70% what we discuss, 80% what we experience, and 90 to 95% of what we share. So I'm just going to throw this out up front. This will be a two-way interactive conversation, and we're really looking to draw upon your realization. And that means the following. You've seen relationships done well in our spiritual communities. You've seen some people, good marriage, good friendship, good connection with mentors, seniors. You've also seen it done in a way that, for want of a better term, was a complete car crash. Okay? You've seen it done really badly. What we want to draw upon is your insights and your experience. And as we do this, we should know that a few things are going to happen. One, Krishna makes this point in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, those who share this supreme secret with my devotees, they're the most dear to me. So as we start to share our insights with each other, we're going to become even more recipients of Krishna's mercy, inspiration, and empowerment. Okay, that's one thing. The second is that as we get into this, we're also going to start to take that teaching much more deeply much more deeply into our own hearts. Because when we share something, as we share it, as we discuss it, as we hear, it goes much more deeply into our consciousness. When it goes deeper into our consciousness, one of the key things that happen is we become transformed. So rather than just hearing the philosophy, rather than it just being on the level of the intellect, and then everyone goes out and does the same thing, by this dynamic process, it will go much more deeply to the heart. And I'm just going to start by asking you a question, and I'm going to ask you to share your answer in the chat window. What's the benefit when the teachings of Krishna consciousness go from the head and start to stay in the heart? I'm going to ask everyone to share your answer to this question in the chat window to kick us off. Just share your answer, send it to everyone. What happens when the teachings go from the head to the heart? Okay, Sham, it resonates with us much more strongly. Fantastic. I'd like everyone to share, because this is not one way. I'm learning from you. We're all adults here. And I know you're intelligent, smart, powerful individuals. I'm not going to learn from you. We're going to learn from each other. Okay, we become more convinced. Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, start to live it, not just know it. Fantastic. Anukul, great to see you again. We feel more integrity. Absolutely. Ram, Govinda, great to hear from you again as well. Our behavior starts to change. Ravi, I love that point. It becomes a natural part of the way that we act. So it's not pretending anymore. It's just BAU, right? The way I live is like this. You start letting go of the ego. Thank you, Bhavin. Mukunda and Shruti, you remain unaffected by various opinions. I love that one, because one of the things that we're constantly doing is trying to see how we can rise above the noise and live with integrity. Okay, let's see. Who else? Shruti, you're able to imbibe our beliefs in our words and actions authentically. Right now, there's a huge thing about being your authentic self. And this is one of the most powerful ways in which you can do
Hang
this.
on.
I'm going to ask everyone to be on mute. There's no background noise. Thank you very much. Okay, we can see the divinity around us. Yes, Vivek. So this Manmanabhava Makto, this idea of seeing Krishna, remembering Krishna. Because if we can see him, we're going to remember him a lot more. Okay, and it's easier to adapt to hardships. Absolutely, Yash. We're going to come back to that point about adapting to hardships a bit later on, but that's a key thing, because oftentimes, if we don't imbibe the philosophy, all that's going to happen is that we're going to be stuck when the theory hits the reality of the situation. So that's really important. So I've got some slides I'm going to show you. And then we're going to, okay, one other, Radhika, thank you for joining the call. Yeah, we develop confidence and faith in Krishna, and we do want that. That can't be faked. When you have confidence and faith in Krishna, it's part of you. It's part of your DNA. And when you hit those challenges, you just knock them out the park. My biggest thing in Krishna consciousness is how we can go from just having a theory about Krishna to really experiencing all the wonderful, all the wonderful adventures, all the great things which are available in Krishna consciousness, if we're able to take it to that next level. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is share my screen, and we're going to get into it. We're going to have some fun on this call today. Okay, so everyone can see my screen. So let's get into this. So relationship refresh. What are we trying to achieve in this session? We're going to look at the dynamics of relationships. We're going to look at your best practices and your realizations. It's not about me. It's about us. Okay? And because this will be interactive, I want to encourage you, let's make it real. Okay? Our teaching is transcendental personalism. Okay? So we're personalists. One of the ways in which we can be personal is as we go through all the content and the material, I want you to keep it back, keep bringing it back to you, okay? Now, this seminar is more or less different from most of the things you hear about Krishna consciousness, right? In Krishna consciousness, we say it's not about you, it's about who? It's about Krishna, right? Put Krishna in the center. In this session, in one sense, it's all about you. In one sense, in this session, it's all about you, because we're going to do open heart surgery. We're going to discuss, we're going to think, and we're going to hear and think, you know what? What applies to me? Where am I strong in these areas? And where are the opportunities for me to become much more powerful, spiritual, Krishna conscious, and therefore to live a much more adventurous life, a much more fulfilling life, a much more exciting life in Krishna consciousness. This is where we're going, and this is now how we're going to get there. Okay, so our first question: why are relationships so important? Because anyone can say relationships are important. And we often hear this, right? You go to different seminars, yeah, sadhu Sanga, blah, blah, blah. Let's make it real though. The first thing we want to talk about is why. And I'm going to ask you to, first of all, share some ideas in the chat window and tune in. Think about what you've read. Think about pastimes or interactions you've had with devotees. Think about things that you've heard in classes, in seminars, in workshops, but also make it real. Think about your own experience in Krishna consciousness, okay? What have you gained, or what do we stand to gain if we're able to develop healthy, devotional, spiritual relationships? I like your answers in the chat window. Then we're going to start to explore what you've shared. Okay, answers in the chat window. Why are these things important? What do we stand to gain in developing real Krishna conscious or Krishna centered relationships? Feel free to share your answers in the chat window and share them with everyone. And bear in mind, as we said, this seminar, we're going to ask you to share different things. So I'm going to draw upon different people as we go through the seminar. Okay, Sundari helps us develop faith. Thank you. Sham helps us to construct a network of support. Okay, I'm going to see any other responses. Why are relationships important? Why are we even spending our time talking about this stuff? Okay, Shruti, we can develop a sense of togetherness and strength. Okay, Ratish, feel love in a real and tangible way. Okay. Anukul, real relationships allow you to work through internal and external challenges, just like Arjuna and Krishna. Okay. Guys, I'm really inspired by everything you're saying. See, this is, you guys should be giving the class, right? Let's be honest. You don't need me here because you have all the answers anyway. But we're going to start to explore some of these points, and we're going to do it in the following way. So on the screen, you can see 5 key points, and I'm going to ask Ravi or Ratish to create the poll, and you guys can just lead in terms of how they fill the poll in, because the key point here is we've got 5 key points on the screen. I want to know which of these 5 particularly stand out for you or resonate with you as a person, as a devotee. Okay, we're going to explore them all, but we're going to start by asking you what particularly stands out for you when you look at these 5 key points about why relationships are so important. Ravi and Ratish, how will they do the poll?
It should be up now.
Okay. So just go for whichever one resonates with you. There's all 5 are on the screen. I want to know what particularly stands out. Okay. And when I see the poll stop moving, I'll know that you've made your decisions. Then we're going to start to explore some of these points. Okay. So, okay, I think we're steady. So we're looking at the following. Item number 1 was the one that stood out the most. Then item number 4, then 5, then 2 and 5, and then 3. So I'm just going to make a note. 1, 4, 2, 5, 3. Okay, let's get into this, because I definitely resonate with everything that you guys are sharing. Okay, so we've got the results here. Yeah, absolutely. 1, 4, 2, 5, and then item number 3. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to actually, okay, let's close that for now. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is the following. I'm going to go back to our full screen so I can see everyone. And I'm going to ask you to use the reaction sign to raise your hands. Okay, so you can raise your thumb or you can raise the hand, however you want to do it. But I'd like to hear from a few people. So we're going to start with the first item. And that first item was that it provides a chance, that relationships provide a chance for us to learn and grow by association. I'd like someone to raise their hand and just tell me a bit about how you've experienced growth and learning through a relationship that you have, a spiritual relationship, a Krishna conscious relationship that you've had. Okay, it's going to be interactive throughout the whole session. I'd like to hear from someone to kick us off by sharing how they've grown. I'm going to scan until I see someone's hand up. Otherwise, I will just call people's names out because I can see all of your names on the screen. And it's too late for you to take your name off now. Okay. Any guesses, any sharing before I call your name? Anyone would like to share that? I'm going to look one more time. Okay, actually, what I'm going to do.
So, Prabhu, I think Mukunda and Shruti actually, they have a comment.
Okay, Mukunda, Shruti, over to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, we had actually selected number 4, but number 1 is kind of tied into that, we felt. And I can say that I felt like I've grown a lot through getting the chance to associate with senior devotees that I was able to interact with on a personal level. And so by being able to interact with them more than just on a, a lecture basis, more one-on-one, I can measure myself against them more realistically, and I can have a back and forth with them that I think has given me more clarity and grounding in Krishna consciousness.
Wonderful. So thank you very much. And it's interesting because you talked about the back and forth and having a one-to-one with them. So let me just dive into this a little bit more, Mukunda. What's the difference between having that personal interaction as opposed to just hearing them when they're on the Vyasa-san or them giving a lecture? What's the value add that you experience, please?
Yeah, it seems with the Vyasa-san classes, first of all, the speaker has to speak in a certain way that they feel that they can reach the most people with that message. So in general, that message may be more general, maybe a little bit more vague, maybe a little bit more surface level. But then when you get to interact one-on-one, then you can talk more about topics that may be directly relevant to you. And that's mostly what I've experienced with getting a chance to interact one-on-one with those devotees that are close to me.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who wanted to share something on this particular point? You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm just going to throw that out just in case there's any other comment on the first point, number 1. Okay, let's bring the screen back to the screen share because I want to go to another point. So one is it provides us a chance for us to learn and grow by association. Many of you also highlighted number 4. It allows us to benefit from the advancement and inspiration of others. I'd like someone to just share with me, why is it so important to be inspired in spiritual life? Why is it so important that you feel inspired? Okay, we'd like anyone to just share the answer to that particular question. What do you feel, or what does it do for your life when you actually feel some real inspiration in Krishna consciousness? Okay, Agape, have I pronounced Agape? Have I pronounced your name properly?
Yeah, it's Agape.
Agape.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Cool. So it's important because if we're just doing it on our own, it's easy to get complacent and think like whatever you're doing is good enough, and it's easy to just get in a routine, So whenever you see someone do something that's different from what you've been doing, and it's inspiring, it makes you think like, oh wow, I need to up my game, like I can do this now, I can do that. Like it just really makes your spiritual practice more creative and expansive.
I love that particular point. Now it reminds me of a statement by Prabhupada. Prabhupada, and many of you may have heard of this.
I can't hear you right now.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Can't hear you.
Can everyone else hear me? Okay, it may be your computer, Agape.
What happened?
Okay. But while you're sorting that out, I'm just going to finish this particular point. There's a famous letter by Prabhupada, and I've seen this in my own life. He talks about having a fresh challenge, right? And I've seen this even in Krishna consciousness, that when devotees, when it gets stale, when it's just like, there's nothing new, I'm not learning anything new, I'm not associating with anything new, I'm here, I'll be honest, I remember when I came to one of your retreats years ago, and something that some of you told me, it really left the memory, left an impression in my mind. And it was like, I was asking some devotees and they were saying, we don't go to the classes in the temple, right? And they were explaining to me that the reason why they don't go to the classes in the temple is like, you sit down for the class and you can literally time your watch. You just, within the next 5 minutes, someone's going to tell you you're not the body, and it's like, how many times can you hear the same thing with no fresh realization, right? And it's almost like parroting. And I was thinking, yeah, that's why it's so important that we keep it fresh, we keep KC exciting, we keep KC dynamic, and this is a big thing for me. The responsibility for us to keep our Krishna consciousness exciting and dynamic is whose responsibility? Someone else's or our own? What do you think? Absolutely, right? You do not want to become bored in spiritual life. But you know what? There's so many damn exciting things. I was in Germany recently, and they're planning a retreat center in Germany. Okay, so they're looking at the plans, what they want, architecture, how they're going to reach out to particular audiences, a whole range of different things. Now, that's just one example. The key thing I'm trying to get across is if you keep your spiritual life exciting, and that has a lot to do with inspiration, feeling that you're growing and learning new things, then actually your experience of life changes because you're inspired. That's the difference between an obstacle and a challenge. If you're uninspired, it's an obstacle. If you feel inspired, if you feel supported, if you feel, you know what, I'm going to knock this out the park, then it's not an obstacle anymore. It's an exciting challenge. So one of the most important things for us to do is to tune in to our sources of inspiration. In fact, your inspiration is like the soundtrack of your entire life. Just like, you know, sometimes they make these multi-million-pound movies, and you know that the movies come out, but there's also some famous musicians who are making the soundtrack to that film, okay? And that soundtrack accompanies the film. It creates the emotion, it sets the atmospherics, etc. So if the soundtrack to your life lacks inspiration, everything becomes difficult. But if the soundtrack to your existence, if the soundtrack to your life is exciting, interesting, inspiring, you've just become many, many times more empowered. Okay, thank you very much for that. Anyone else? Why is it so important? We talk about this, and I'm going to go back to the screen. We talk about this idea of allowing us to benefit from the advancement and inspiration of others. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment about how they've experienced that in their own life? So I'm not talking about theory here. I'm talking about what you have actually experienced. Who else would like to make a comment? Okay, Sundari, please, over to you. Sundari, I can't hear you for some reason. Can you try again? Sundari?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, can you hear me now?
Perfectly, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to share that I actually chose number 1, but I did feel like it was, like Mukunda mentioned, connected to 4 as well. Because I was thinking that a lot of times in my life, I benefited from seeing how different devotees dealt with certain challenges and how they would turn to scripture and things like that. So it made everything more practical for me and less of just something that we hear. So that made it really helpful to see it all in action in another devotee's life and them going through, you know, the practical aspects.
And I really love that comment, Sundari, because it's interesting. It reminds me of something that Prabhupada said. First class intelligence we learn by hearing, but there's also the ability to learn by seeing. And there's also the ability to learn by experience. Sundari, which do you think is the least painful? Learning by hearing, seeing, or experience?
Yeah, definitely seeing would be least painful. Also the most challenging, I think. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've seen this. So I'll be honest with you. I remember looking at so many devotees, and many of you actually are like this. When I see many of you, I can see you guys are old souls, man. You've been around before. So there's certain things that you shouldn't have to go through again, because it's just like, duh, you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, move on. And that whole thing of learning through someone else's experience, that's a key part of it, because it's almost a form of spiritual acceleration, because you don't have to go through the bad relationship. Your friend got into a bad relationship. You've thought, how the hell did he go into that situation? What did they do wrong? What were the warning signs? You can imbibe those lessons that next time when you're looking at a relationship, you can pick up these signs early and just avoid all of those issues because you're sharp. You're sharp enough to be constantly looking to learn. I remember reading something just recently by my own spiritual master. He said, someone who's a sincere and serious spiritualist, they can learn from everyone. They can learn from people who are doing things well, but they can also learn from people who are making mistakes as well, right? We can learn what not to do in a relationship, in our association as well. And that can help you to avoid all kinds of issues and all kinds of challenges. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to take 1 second and see, is there anyone else who wants to make a comment? If so, raise your hand. If not, we're going to step on from why relationships are important to look at another question. Okay, I can't see any hands raised. So we're going to move on to the next question, which is, okay, what makes relationships work? Okay, because yeah, we talk about relationships being important and so on. Actually, let's take it a step back. I want you to raise your hand. How many of you have seen relationships which really went badly? Right? It doesn't, whether it's you or friends, family, I want you to raise your hand. How many of you have ever seen relationships in KC, right? So we're talking devotees. How many of you have ever seen relationships which really, I mean, they really went badly? Okay, just raise your hand. Don't be shy. Okay, I can see, interesting. I can see a lot of hands coming up. I'm included in that. I've seen it happen really badly. Okay, now let's break it down. Many of these, practically all of us, we're devotees, whether by birth, whatever it is, we're devotees of Krishna, we accept Krishna. So how is it possible that you can have people who are on the spiritual path, trying to be pious and spiritual and Krishna conscious? It answers in the chat window. How is it possible that people who are trying to be spiritual can have so many challenges in relationships? What are we doing wrong? What are some ideas? Put it in the chat window. I know you've got a lot of answers because you've seen a lot of this happen before. Break it down for me. Okay. Thank you. I want to see some of these answers. Okay. Mukunda and Shruti, we're human. Okay. Mecca, Aharini, yep, we don't have mentors. Yes, Agape, ego can definitely come in. Anuj, great to see you again. Lack of connecting to the mode of goodness consistently. Okay, Anuj, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on this first of all. What do you mean lack of connecting to the mode of goodness? And what do you mean by consistently? Why does it have to be consistent, Anuj?
Haribol Prabhu.
Haribol.
Yeah, well, I think that at the level of mode of goodness, there's a sense of clarity around who we are,
Yeah.
A sense of self-awareness. And I think that's lacking. You even mentioned the other comments that especially when we're connecting to the lower modes, there's a lot of unclarity around who we are, what we need, those type of things. The ego is stronger. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's extremely important, just one aspect of it.
Absolutely. One of the things I've seen is that when people go into a relationship, especially if it's like for marriage, if they really don't know themselves, and we're not expecting us to know ourselves 100%, that's a lifelong journey. But it's important to know some significant things, because then I know what I need. It's not just what I desire. I know what I need in a relationship. I was doing some research on this, and there was one psychologist, and he was talking about how you have people who are highly introverted, right? And you may have someone who's highly extrovert, and they want to have this relationship. He said it can be a real issue, because when we talk about being introverted or extroverted, what we're talking about is where you get your energy from. So let's say you have a couple who are married. One is highly introverted. That means they love being by themselves, dude, right? They love being by themselves. In fact, if they didn't have to see anyone else, they wouldn't even see anyone else. They could change their number, no contact. They love it. In this coronavirus pandemic, there are many people who've been having the time of their life during lockdown. I don't have to see anyone, don't have to go into the office, don't have to look at anyone. They can be at a distance. The most I have to do is pick up the phone. This is my idea of heavenly planets, okay? But for other people, it's been some of the hardest periods of their life. Because if someone's an extrovert, they get their energy by being around people, right? Having that association in a very kind of, one-to-one, face-to-face way. So we are hardwired differently. And I love the point that you made, Anuj, therefore. We have to recognize that. When I was, from the age of 13, I was looking at self-development stuff, right? Before I came to Krishna consciousness. And one of the biggest illusions was the idea that anyone can act in any way forever. We can flex, we can change our character, we can adjust in the short term for specific situations, but everyone has their own natural style of being. So the introvert doesn't become extrovert just because they feel like it, you see? So knowing that, knowing ourselves, knowing what we need is crucial for relationships to work. Let me go to someone else. I saw quite a few good points in the chat window. I want to go to Nitai Charan because I love this point. We become impractical, know too much, know too much or know too little. Nitai Charan, what do you mean by impractical? What do you mean?
I'm talking about more of the pure devotee syndrome kind of a thing.
Okay.
It's like, or it's like
around more than the coronavirus, by the way. Yeah. What do you mean?
So it's like when we read the scriptures, sometimes we become so just like we're not this body, we have to become detached. But then when we have relationship with devotees, we try to apply this in an unpractical way. You know, Krishna consciousness is a very personal way, but sometimes because of our lack of understanding or knowing too little, we make it impractical in a sense that if I'm not this body, you're not this body, we don't have to take care of it and things like that. And we don't really see the feelings of other devotees.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading a quote from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and he was talking about how if someone goes through a difficulty, that's not the time to tell them that they're not the body or it's their karma. You see the point? I mean, whether it's philosophically the case or not, let's say someone's lost a loved one or someone's just lost their job. You know, that's not the time to break it down like, dude, that's your karma. No, it's like, how are you feeling? I'm sorry that that's happened to you. How can we support you? You know, Prabhupada made a very interesting statement. He told some devotees, he said, do not try to be more of a Paramahamsa than me, which is very, very interesting. Do not try to be more of a pure devotee than me, you know? And I think you're right. We often miss that human angle. Yeah, we often miss that human angle, and it causes so many issues in our relationships as well. Let me show you the screen again, because I want to share with you some ideas on this point, looking at what makes a relationship positively work. And then I'd like to know, again, via a poll, which of these 7, have a read through. I'll pass it to the organizers to create the poll, but which one particularly resonates with you? In terms of the things that you do. I want to hear about stuff that you do that makes your relationships work better. 7 things on the screen. Let's do the poll and then we'll have a discussion. Which of these things particularly help relationships to work and stand out for you? Okay. I'd like everyone to share their answers. Just make that vote. What stands out for you in terms of things that you know have really helped your relationships to be successful and to flourish and to be positive and to be fulfilling? We'll give you a few more seconds because we do want to hear a few responses about this, what you know works, okay? And then we'll have some discussion on this. Okay. I might stop the poll early just because I'm conscious that there's a little bit more that we want to get through. But this is interesting. So especially the second point, which is interesting. Okay, so we're actually done. So the second point particularly stood out. And then we've got the point number 6. Okay, that's good. I'm just gonna call out a few names because I want to hear and draw a few people in. So Harini, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell me about this encouraging each other and supporting each other on our journey? What does that mean practically? How do I do that in a positive way in a relationship, in whether it's a friendship or whatever?
Yeah, I actually think it comes a lot from vulnerability, being able to like reveal your heart in confidence. I think that's actually one of the 6 loving exchanges. But I think being able to reveal yourself to somebody that you truly trust and be able to share everything that you're dealing with, good and bad, and taking advice and yeah, any room for improvement from that person is really important. And then also giving back to people that are maybe like younger than you, so that like connection of mentorship is coming from older to younger. I think that's really important.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to ask Ratish. Ratish, what are the obstacles to trust? Because I love what you were saying, Harini. It's important, but I don't even have to ask you. I know that there are people on the call who've trusted someone who was a devotee, and that person broke your trust, right? They proved themselves to be untrustworthy. So Ratish, what do we need to put in place so we can build that trust between, or we can trust others, let's say? What do we need to put in place so we can actually trust other devotees and then have those vulnerable, open conversations, Ratish?
Well, just off the top of my head, I guess some self-work, some self-esteem work. So, you know, even if we feel that we're being vulnerable with someone, that you know, we're willing to take a chance with them because maybe we've built up some level of, I guess, not full dependence in that trust, but we're willing to be vulnerable because, you know, we're less afraid of getting hurt as individuals.
That's a really good point. I want to go to Ram Govinda. I want to go to Ram Govinda. Ram, see, this is an interesting one because you brought up trust. Should we just trust people? You know, they're devotees. They may even be devotees who are chanting 16 rounds every single day. So should I just place my trust in them? Ram Govinda, what do you think?
My gut tells me no. And I think this just applies with a devotee or not a devotee. The same principle will apply. I think to put your trust in someone, you have to have some sort of relationship with them, some sort of something that can show you that they're trustworthy people, whether maybe they're a mutual friend of somebody and through them you build your trust, or you can get a good repertoire from them, or maybe your personal experience. But I want to go head first.
Absolutely. So there's something around getting to know each other. You know, it's so interesting to the point that you guys made earlier. Sometimes we try to jump above being human. So it's just like, I'm just going to give them my credit card details. I'm like, dude, are you serious? Really? Oh, but it's okay. The chant 16 rounds. It's like, have you lost your mind? That's not the way to go. So it's definitely an evolving thing, an evolving relationship. Absolutely. And that's really, really important. I'm going to go to, let's see. I want to go to Akandanam. Akandanam. This point number 5, looking for mutual interest and understanding. See, that's actually from the Bhagavatam. That's from the 3rd canto, Bhagavatam, chapter 29, text number 17. In that purple, Prabhupada talks about friendship. And he says friendship should be made with people who have mutual interest and understanding. Why is Prabhupada saying that? How does it help our relationship when we have mutual interest and understanding?
Yeah, I think one thing I can think of is if you don't find someone with mutual interests, you have to work so hard in that relationship to, cultivate this sense of closeness. Because if you can't find those mutual things to relate on, to getting to that level of closeness, it's just that much tougher. And, one example I can think of is, at work, if you interact with people that don't have mutual interests, for example, you just can't ever develop that complete sense of closeness unless that's there. So that's my perspective.
And just a follow-up question to Kandanan. Do you have to, do you and another person have to have all the same interests, complete the same interests, and complete the same understanding in order to build that relationship? Does it have to be 100% equal, same in all respects?
No, I don't think it has to be, completely same, but maybe having similar values with that person will help get onto that, path to developing that closeness, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a study on this, and this relates to this relates to relationships in terms of male-female. So first of all, our scriptures say that, by the way, that if the husband and wife have the same values, then what tends to happen is they have the same expectations and they're all growing in the same direction. So that's really important. There was a study done, and they were looking at couples who'd been married for a long period of time and happily married. So they were looking at quantity and quality. Quality is that they're happy, they've been happily married for a long time. Quantity means they've been married for decades. I mean, these were couples who've been married for 40, 50 years. And they did a study to find out what was it that allowed these couples to be so happily married. And to your point, Akandanam, it was exactly that. They found that the couples who had the same values, and I can send the article if anyone's interested in that. I can forward it to Ratish or to Ravi, and then they can forward it on to you. It was brilliant, and it's exactly what the scripture says. So our Shastra says that, because this is the interesting thing about our scriptures. Krishna controls the material energy. So when he explains through scripture, or when his pure devotees explain through scripture how the material energy works, he's explaining his own invention, right? It's like, I've designed it like this. So when you press this button, this happens. When you press that button, that happens. So absolutely. I was thinking this recently, that if we as a movement really understood that one point about really looking for people with similar values, or even in the world, if it was done in the world, you could cut the divorce rate by over 50% overnight. Overnight. It's that simple. I was just telling the guys at the beginning, before I started the presentation, I said I want to do a bit of a shameless plug for my Instagram, because also we've been doing these podcasts. And one of the things that we're starting to talk about is personality styles. And it's because we want to help people to know more about themselves, so that they can know how to understand themselves, how to understand other people, and how to relate. Because you can always find some mutual level of interest, but you should know who you're dealing with and what's important to them, so you can find a common ground. So Akandanam, thank you very much for sharing that particular point. I want to go to Raga. Raga, I'd like to ask you about having peer association, junior association, and actually should be senior. So ignore that last one about friendship. So peer association, junior association, senior association. So Raga, why is it important that we all have all three different types of relationship, please? If you could share your thoughts, Raga, if you're on the line. If you're not on the line, I will go to someone else. In that case, I'm going to go to Vaishali. Vaishali, are you on the line?
Yes, Prabhuji, can you please repeat the question? This is Vrinda Gopika.
Vrinda Gopika, thank you for joining the call. So I'm asking, why is it important that we as devotees have good relationships with peers, so that people on the same level, good relationships with people who are junior to us, and good relationships with people who are senior to us? How does it help to have all three dynamics going on?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Prabhuji, Senior Vaishnava Association, we learn from that. We grow from them. That's why it's very important for us. Like we are attending, basically I'm from Shri Radha Gopinath temple, so there is a counseling meeting and we attend that counseling meeting. So we learn step by step Sisi Bhagavatam, Sisi Bhagavad Gita, Sisi Bhagavatam, Sisi Chaitanya Charitamrita, and learn and grow by day. And the second question is the similar Vaishnava, we can share Krishna Katha and whatever we learn from Shishi Bhagavatam, even our personal matter we can share with them. And sometimes our japa is not good, so we cannot share directly our senior Vaishnava, but we can share with our similar age Vaishnava or similar standard Vaishnava, so that and something happen in our office, we can share with them, and we learn from each other. We do japa together, and the third is the junior Vaishnava. So Prabhuji, nobody is senior and junior in the bhakti. I learn from our little Laddu Gopal and Shri Radha Gopi, small 1 to 6, 15 years old Vaishnava. When we are teaching them Sisi Bhagavad Gita sloka, I learn and grow day by day from them only. So Prabhuji, we need the association of 3 type Vaishnava, with similar Vaishnava, senior Vaishnava. We learn, we hear. So main thing, we regularly hear Shishi Bhagavatam or Shishi Chaitanya Charitamrita, and like a cow, we can see that cow when she's sitting afternoon time, whatever she eat in the morning, she's chewing. Like that, we chew whatever we hear the lecture from senior, and we will share our colleagues or in a lunch time, and we will share with our similar Vaishnava, and even we can share with the little Laddu Gopal and Radha Gopi, and we learn from them also, Prabhuji. So association of Vaishnava is more and more important. One more thing, that when I came in abroad, I'm just neutrally crying that I can get association, because I'm coming from Shri Radha Gopinath, get so strong association of Vaishnava. And my Gurudev Radhanath Maharaj said, wherever you are staying, you have to make Sridham Vrindavan Dham. That is the Vaishnava quality. Recently, Bhakti Charu Maharaj also said that not necessary to stay in a Sridham Vrindavan Dham. Wherever you are staying, you make Sridham Vrindavan Dham that place by your own example, by the given association and taking association of Vaishnava. So Prabhuji, for me, Vaishnava association is very important. And when more and more difficulties came in our life, we become more and more sincere in bhakti. In Radha Gopinath, I have a chappan bhoga in my plate. Means so strong association, but still I am not sincere in a bhakti, because everything is ready. But when I came in abroad, then I understand the association of Vaishnava. What is the importance of association of Vaishnava? And by Shri Radha Gopinath Mercy, I get such a strong association of Bhakti Sanga. We are 295 Matajis online. Every day we do japa together, morning Shri Bhagavatam together, afternoon class. So we are working also, and we are growing in a Bhakti Lata Bij, and learn from Acharya Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, Bhakti Radhanath Maharaj, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, Niranjan Maharaj. So inspiring. Whenever I get time, I read, I hear the lectures and share with my own family. Please forgive me, take more time. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Prabhu.
No, everything you're sharing is very, very wonderful. So thank you. I just want to be conscious, because I know there's a little bit more we want to cover before we open up for questions. But thank you. So I'll just add to that. So with our peers, as you said, we're able to reveal the mind. With our juniors, we're able to give back. We're able to pass on what we've learned, and still we will always pick up things as we're going through all those relationships. And with our seniors, and I know someone made the comment before, with our seniors, we can get that guidance. We can get that guidance, that experience, that insight as well. What I'd like all of you to do, if you have pen and paper, or you can do this on your phone, I'd like you to give yourselves a rating out of 10 for each of these 7 points. Okay, let's make it very real, because we often don't do this enough in terms of introspection. Look at each of these 7 points. Give yourself a rating between 0 and 10. 10 means you're very strong in that particular point. Less than 10 means that there's an area of opportunity. And when you're looking at this, this is one important last area. I don't care so much how you rate yourself. I want you to rate yourself according to how other people see you. So for example, number 1, making time to get to know those you want to build a relationship with. You may think you make loads of time, but if I was to ask the people that you are friends with, how would they rate you? Will they say, yeah, you know what? She's really wonderful. She really makes time to build our relationship, to get to know me. Or will they say, you know what? I struggle to get any time with her. So you're rating it from the point of view of how you're perceived by those who are around you. Okay, I repeat that. This is about how you're perceived. And the reason is because if it's a relationship, it's not just how I think I am. I may think I'm wonderful. But if everyone else thinks, you know what, Bhuta Bhavana, oh my God, have you ever tried being a friend with this guy? It's absolutely crazy. Then that's not gonna work so well. So give yourself a rating out of 10 for each of these 7 points in terms of how other people in your friendship circle or your connections, how they would rate you for each of these 7 points. I'll give you literally a few seconds to quickly rate. Don't think too much about it, but give yourself an honest rating. How would you be perceived? And then we're going to step on. Okay. How would you rate yourself? How would they rate you for each? So practicing 6 loving exchanges. Would your friends say, you know what? I love this person. They give me gifts. We receive gifts. We have prasadam together. They revealed their mind. They inquire about Krishna, or they say, you know what? I can't remember the last time any of these things happened between us. Okay. How would those in your circle, how would they rate you in each of these areas? Okay. And the last thing is, once you've done that rating, pull an asterisk or a tick next to one of these areas that you feel that you should give a bit more attention to. Okay. Because we're not interested in theory. We want to grow. Next time that we come together on a call, I want to be hearing how, yeah, I've done this since we spoke. I'm building the relationship in this way. I'm working on this thing. I'm making sure I'm conscious to do this or to do less of this. Let's make it real. Let's transform. So rating for each of these out of 10 and pull a tick next to one of these 7 that you think I need to give a bit more attention in this area. Okay. I need to give a bit more attention in this area. Okay. And then we're going to move on. So I'll give you a few more seconds, then we'll go to the next slide, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. We'll have at least half an hour for Q&A. Okay. So let's move on to the next screen. So the question here is, what are the top relationship challenges? So let's just look at this. These are some of the key things that people say are major issues in terms of relationship. And what I'd like you to do is the following. Let's do this. So let's get this back. All I'd ask you to do is to put into the chat window which of these particularly resonate for you as a challenge, okay? Which of these have you seen to be a challenge that resonates for you? Type your answer into the chat window, send it to everyone. I'll get back to the screen just so you can see these again. So 1 is I don't have time. Number 2, no one gets me, man. It's just like, I'm just so unique. I'm so special. I'm so different. Like none of the people understand me. Number 3, no one wants to do what I want to do. Number 4, I don't know how to connect with others. Number 5, I'm okay. I don't need all that association. I've got my partner. I've got my wife. I've got my husband. I'm good. Or number 6, I have a family and career to take care of. What are the things which get in the way, which can be challenges in terms of devotee relationships? In the chat window, just let me know what particular challenges are you seeing on that screen that stand out for you? Okay, which ones stand out for you? I can see, okay, got a few answers. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm just going to ask you to talk about these ones. Okay, so let's do this. Anukul Saver, which one stood out for you, please?
For me, the first one.
Yeah, now that's an interesting one because that one comes up all the time. So what do we do about this? If we know that relationships take time and we feel that we don't have time, any thoughts, Anukul?
Well, personally for me, I've just tried to communicate my favorite ways of communicating with people. I think there is a sense of overexposure to instant communication, like on WhatsApp or whatever. So I try to kind of stay away from that and communicate right away that let's just speak on the phone for half an hour a week or something, but I won't be able to reply to you on WhatsApp for like a few days or whatever. So just sort of setting up that system and explaining my preference of communication has helped me deal with the time factor.
Yeah. So Anukul, let me just dive into, because that's a very good practice. Why is it so useful rather than messages to actually get on the phone and actually talk? What does that add to your relationship? What have you seen that it adds to the relationship?
Well, I think it makes you closer to the other person, just because hearing their voice, there's so much nuance in that itself. Personally, the reason I do it is because I just don't like typing too much. Like it's like, trying to explain a small thing, you have to write a whole essay and then it's always misconstrued on the other end. Like, people don't understand what you're trying to say. So yeah, like I'm a very extroverted person, so I prefer just talking.
And it's also interesting because when we have those relationships where we can speak more directly, there's less chance for misunderstanding. The number of times I've seen devotees get into a conflict because someone sent something on the WhatsApp and it's like the other person took what was messaged and took it the wrong way. And then it became a whole back and forth negative thing. And I'm like, dude, just pick up the phone and talk to the person. If you speak to the person directly, you can have a real-time conversation and clear the air. So that's really important. I'm going to Priyadarshini. Priyadarshini, which of these 6 particularly stood out for you, please?
I guess right now I would say the career aspect, just because it's something I'm focusing on.
Okay. So how do we navigate that, Priyadarshini? Because we do have family, we do have career, and yet at the same time we do know, because we spoke about this at the beginning, we know about the power of good relationships. So we want to have those good relationships. How do you juggle those, Priya?
Well, I think if we really value friendships, then we have to figure out a way to prioritize them. And so even though I might be very busy, I make time, whether it's one day a week, to send out a few messages, or depending if, friends are sometimes all over the country and then it's hard. But I think you just have to find a way to give that time to the things that you find important. And if we find certain relationships important, we should devote that time regardless of whatever else we might have going on.
Thank you. And that's really key. I really want to emphasize that point, because oftentimes people say we don't have time, but actually what we're really saying is it's not a priority. Because I remember this analogy. So my spiritual master gave this analogy, said like, look, for example, people's like, oh, I don't have time to be Krishna conscious, I've got so many things to do. He said, but if you were working in a job, let's say you're working in a job and your boss is really strict, you can only have your lunch break from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, that's it. But you find out that at 2 p.m., the bank near your workplace is giving $1 million to everyone who comes to that bank. I don't care how strict your boss is, 2 p.m. you are at the bank to claim your £1 million, your $1 million, right? Because it's really important. It becomes a priority. And one other thing I'm going to say to this, because you made a really good point, Priyadarshini, we have to get into the mood of sacrifice. What we often lack in the modern world is we want everything without letting go of anything. So it's like, you got 24 hours. I want to keep everything I'm doing and I want to get this other thing as well. It's kind of like, no, that's not how life works. Param drisva nivartate, to let go of, to to get something higher, we have to let go of something lower, right? So maybe I'm not going to watch TV as much because I value that relationship. So the time I'll be watching Netflix, I'm going to be speaking to a friend of mine, right? Or I'll do less on Netflix. So the time I'd be doing, you know, I'm not going to have an hour lunch break. I'm going to have half an hour so I can spend half an hour speaking to a friend, right? So it's being ready to make some yagya, to make some sacrifice, to give up something of a lesser value so I can keep bringing in something that I know is important to me. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Krishna. Is it Krishna Prabhu? Krishna Das? I'm going to ask you to share one of these 6 which particularly stood out for you, please. Okay, maybe not Krishna Das. Let me go to someone else, actually. I think I may have got the name slightly wrong. Let's go to, I'm going to ask Ravi. Ravi, anything different that stood out to you from this list?
Yeah, I think for me, the one that I most resonate with is probably the first one, where I don't have time. I think, you know, a lot of times it's a cop-out. I think if I had to be completely honest, if I wanted to make time, I could probably make time to invest in relationships and, you know, talk to people who I don't regularly speak to. But I think, you know, to be completely honest, sometimes like I am really busy and it's hard to make time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just, for me, sometimes it's a struggle balancing, prioritizing, making that time for other people. So I think that's the one, the biggest challenge for me.
So Ravi, let me just ask you about that one. What would be the benefit? Let's say it's us two, right? So we're in a friendship and we need to make time for each other. What's the value of us if we get together on a one-to-one conversation and think, okay, I've just started a new job, I'm working these hours. Let's have a discussion about how we're going to make things work in terms of staying in touch and where we're going to find the time. What would be the value just by having that open and honest conversation up front? Look, something's about to shift in my life. I'm going to be more busy than I've been. Let's have a talk about what this could do to our relationship and how we're going to make sure we stay in touch. How does that help you and I, Ravi?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the biggest advantage is, you know, it avoids a little bit of miscommunication from like the other person's side. Because, you know, if you don't at least touch base and let the other person know, then they might, you know, make assumptions that, you know, you're no longer a priority in their life, or they might jump to conclusions that you don't even intend to, that you don't even like feel. So I think just by being honest in the first place and kind of even saying that you're going to be busy or not available for some time, I think even that in itself is very helpful and avoids potential miscommunication.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's some of the things I do with some of my friends, right? So we'll have a conversation and be like, okay, this is going on. I'm working on this, this, and this. And it's really valuable, especially when we say that up front, you know? And I'm going to ask Sundari, why is it valuable that we say it up front rather than waiting till this person hasn't heard from us for about 3 or 4 weeks and it's like, I haven't heard from you, what's going on? It's like, oh yeah, I've been really busy. Why is it good if I say that to my friends ahead of time? This is about to come up. How does that help, please, Sundari? I can't hear you, Sundari. You may need to do something about the sound just because I want to hear your comments.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
I can hear you loud and clear now, Sundari.
I don't know why that keeps happening. I would say it's good to do it up front because you don't wait for them to have to go through that mental battle in their own head first, and then that causes damage, and then you have to repair that. So instead, just like be proactive and make sure that damage isn't caused before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to do one more. Krishna Dave, I'm going to ask you anything that stood out differently to what's been discussed so far on that list, please.
I chose personally number 1. And it's mainly because of everything I have going on in life. But like you mentioned, if someone works at a job and they find out the bank's giving out $1 million, they'll be there. So at this current stage, I'm trying to figure out how to organize my life in such a way where I can wake up earlier. I was even studying like, you know, yoga nidra technique maybe I can like sleep 2 hours and only get, you know, and operate in that kind of way just to optimize how much time I have in my day. But yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking.
But Christian, Dave, you brought up another good point, because there's also limitations that we do genuinely have. I've seen devotees trying to be friends with like 30, 40 people. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, how are you going to stay in touch with those people? I mean, if you're like a sannyasi and you're full time, that's different. But because we do have limitations, sometimes it may be that we touch base less frequently with some more than others. And it's also important, therefore, and I'm going to ask you, Christian Dave, about this. Christian Dave, can you tell me about the importance of quality over quantity in terms of how often you touch base with people and how much time you spend? Is it possible to still have a fulfilling relationship with some people, even though you don't speak as often, but when you do, you're able to go deep? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think for me, I feel like I have sides that are more introverted than others. So if I do have a relationship, it's because someone has somehow or another met or matched my same interest and habits. So I want to connect with them. So if I do connect with them, I try to find ways in which are tangible for me and also reciprocal for the other person, so that we can also feel a connection and it's sustainable. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm going to add one other thing to this. What I sometimes do with some of my friends, like, so let's say they're devotees, like, okay, I'm going to have time to study, and then I'm going to have time for my friendships. But what you may sometimes do is overlap the two things, right? So with my friends, we study together. So we have that association with that connection, and I go in my hour of studying of Bhagavatam or studying Prabhupada's books. So I'm still building the relationship. I'm still feeling that we're connected, but it's also because we're achieving more than one thing at the same time, you know? So it could be also, there's some service I need to get done, right? And I want to spend time with this friend. Okay, let's do the service together, you know? So we're catching up, we're doing something. Let's say we're helping out the temple, we're helping with the cooking at a feast, but we're also spending some time catching up and speaking, right? It may be someone else. It's like, okay, I need to do my japa. Let's go for a japa walk together, right? So sometimes it's not time for one thing, then time for something else. Sometimes these two things can coincide. And therefore we still feel the connection, we still feel the camaraderie, and we're getting other things that we need to get done together at the same time as well. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because I wanna also make sure we have some time for questions. And so I'm gonna pause and I'm just gonna throw it out for any questions that may have come from the form that was sent out earlier. So I'll go to the organizers and we'll see where we go from there.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. I was gonna say, if anyone has a question they want to ask in person, since I give an encouraging interaction, you can raise your hand and we'll see it. But we'll start with some questions from the forum.
Okay.
So we have a question here from Rupa Sagar. Would you suggest an approach on how to solicit feedback from devotees? Sometimes we fear being judged, and that inhibits us from being open.
Yeah, so the thing is, this is really good. So that point, that was something my spiritual master did, and I do that. And I'll be honest with you, it's incredible. Let me explain how it works. When we talk about feedback, people assume often it's negative. It doesn't have to be negative, right? So let's start with the positive. There's a science to feedback. It's found that if you want to build a really healthy relationship, there should be 5 pieces of positive feedback to every 1 piece of negative or developmental. That's the first thing. So what I always advise devotees, catch people doing the right thing, right? Don't just wait for something bad to happen in a relationship, then suddenly, Prabhu, I need to talk to you about something. No, right? Because, see, otherwise we become like a bad boss. What's a bad boss? The bad boss is someone You're working day in, day out, you're doing a great job, no one says anything. But the moment something goes wrong, suddenly all hell breaks loose and everyone wants to talk to you. And it's kind of like, dude, what's going on here? I've been working in this job for 5 years, doing a great job, you've said nothing. But the moment one thing goes wrong, suddenly everyone wants to talk to me. So I'm always telling devotees, proactively look to catch people doing the right thing, right? That devotee who's your friend, when you see them do some service really well, like there's nothing wrong saying, dude, I just want to say the way you gave that class or the way you led the kirtan, I thought was incredible. Thank you, right? Or I really loved the insight that you shared with me. I found it really insightful for this reason. And you know what's amazing about this? When you have that proactive approach, you will find that people trust you. And you know what's amazing when they trust you? You don't have to go looking to tell them when something needs to be improved. When people trust, I had a call before this session with a friend of mine, right? So we read together. And on the call, he said to me, Bhuta Bhavana, what do you think I need to work on? Right? I didn't bring it up. He brought it up. And he said to me, he said, the thing is, he said, and I said to him, I said, look, dude, I'm just one person. When I give you feedback, I'm not expecting you to take my feedback. I'm offering you the gift and you can do however you want because I'm not always correct. This is my perception. This is how things come across from my perspective. And he said to me, I'm saying this in front of my deities, right? He said to me, Bhuta Bhavana, he said, you're one of the few people, if you gave me feedback, I wouldn't evaluate it because I trust you, right? And I was thinking, how do we develop that trust? Yeah, catch people doing the right thing. There's a study on this also. The study was, and I teach leadership development and training, right? So we have all these studies and all the research around this, and we don't do this in ISKCON. We don't catch people doing the right thing. We only talk when something when something has gone wrong, and that's all wrong. So feedback can be positive first of all, and I know for myself that I have to build that trust with another person. I have to show you that I'm on your side, okay? I'm not just saying something because I've had a bad day, I'm feeling a bit moody, you know, I don't like you. No, I'm your servant. So I know that this is how I see it personally. I have to earn the right to give that developmental feedback. So I try to earn that right every day by being encouraging, being inspiring, being uplifting, giving people time, giving people energy, right? To show you that actually I care about you. I love you, bro. I'm on your side. I want to see you go back to God probably more than you do. And if I've demonstrated that in my day-to-day relationships, then if something does need to be said, I've already built the relationship, right? So therefore, when I say, okay, dude, one thing I think needs to be worked on, you know it's coming from the right place because I've not waited till the negative situation before I speak to you. Okay, that's the first most important thing I'd say. We don't do that in our movement, but think about ISKCON. Think about our communities. If in our day-to-day spiritual lives, we were catching people doing the right thing. Just think how powerful that would be, right? And then if people then have to be told something that's developmental, I guarantee you they'll take it a completely different way. Completely different. I've seen that in my own life, right? Oh, sometimes people complain, oh, the devotees don't take feedback. No, they do take feedback if the relationship's good. If they trust you, if they like you, if they know that you're on their side, you know? And then to add to that is how we say it. So I was speaking to a group of leaders recently, and I asked them this question. I said, how does timing play into feedback? Okay, and I'm going to ask you that question. Just someone to raise their hand. How does the timing affect how people take your feedback if it's developmental? Any answers? You can just raise your hand. Anyone who wants to share? Was it Agape? Did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, I was actually listening to one of your lectures earlier about mental health, where you were talking about, am I the right person to say this? Is this the right time? Or something else. Am I the right person to say this?
Yes.
Should I say it right now?
Yeah.
And doesn't need to be said at all.
Exactly.
And so we're talking about right now, is it the right time?
Yeah.
I think the example you gave is with someone's in bereavement, and you have some feedback for them and it's not positive feedback, might not be the best time to tell them because they're in a different mental state where they can't fully process what you're saying. So being very aware of the mental state that the person that you're talking to is in, or the mood that they're in, so that they can properly hear what you said.
Absolutely. So, and one of the easiest ways is just to ask people, how are you doing today? How's the day been going? Right? Because if I get a sense that, okay, they've had a really tough day, right? You know, they've had some bad news. They found out that someone who's related to them has got symptoms of coronavirus. I can see by their body language, they're under stress. Is that the time for me to give them that? You know, oh, by the way, someone complained about the way that you led the kirtan. Is that the time to break that down? I don't think so. You see, so it's really, this is a lot to do with emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. Prabhupada was like that. People don't know, Prabhupada was a genius. You know, he's so incredibly attuned because of his connection with Krishna and because of his love. That's what real love does. Real love attunes you. You get a feel for where people are coming from because you actually care. You actually give a damn. Because you actually care, you notice these other things. And that then informs how you deliver the message. So that's on one side. The other side about feedback is that, you know what, it's a huge gift. I can tell you in my own life, feedback has changed my life. I had the darshan. I was called into a meeting with one of my Shiksha gurus. This is a sannyasi. We were in Belgium, in Radadesh. So he called me and my wife into the room. And I tell you honestly, this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He gave me feedback that changed my life. It was incredible. And it was positive and developmental. He helped me to focus, right? Bhuta Bhavana, you're at a stage in your spiritual life where now you should focus in this way. It was a game changer, promise you. So Krishna uses the devotees that you're open to give you the answers that can help you to really move up to another level. Yeah. So I would encourage you, actually, go out to those friends and family that you trust, and you should have someone. You should have some people that you trust, and ask them, what would you like to see more of? Right? What would you like to see less of? So what do you think I should be focusing on a bit more? Right? What do you think I could adjust so that I can grow in spiritual life? And if you show them that you're mature enough to take what they're saying in a healthy and open and honest way, you'll be surprised what they'll tell you. Right? Honestly, it's a game changer. If you want a real exciting adventure in spiritual life, start speaking to the devotees like that. Say, you've known me for some years now. What do you think I should do more of? What do you think I should do less of? See, the way you ask the question is important, by the way. Right? I was listening to Bhagavatam earlier today. First canto, chapter 2, I think it was text number 6. Anyway, if it's not text number 6, it's one of the purples in that area. And Prabhupada says it's all about questions and answers. All about questions. He says the birds in the morning, the birds are asking questions and answers. It's all about the questions that you ask. If you ask the right questions, your life will be amazing, crazy. If you say to people, just imagine this as an example. You go to devotees who really know you, and you say to them, what do you think is the single most important thing for me to work on to become to make maximum advancement in spiritual life? Think about that as a question. What is the one thing that you think is the most important thing for me to work on that will really help me to take my spiritual life to the next level? What one thing? You'll be amazed on what they'll tell you. So for me, I find that incredibly exciting, because what I've experienced in my 25 years or so of practice, that stuff is incredible. I had advice from Satyananda Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Chandramuli Maharaj, Radha Maharaj, that's just changed my life again and again. Oh, like literally throughout my entire spiritual journey. Bhakti Charamaj, he gave me advice. So I'll say, don't worry about how other people are saying it. You reach out to the people that you trust. You find people that you trust. Don't, because you may or may not get feedback from someone that you take seriously what they're saying, okay? Don't worry about that. You be proactive. I wrote an article just recently. Actually, it's your sister, Ram Govinda, your sister actually. So she has this newsletter. And I wrote an article for the newsletter and it just came out this morning. And it was all about the ability to be transformed by asking the right questions and therefore changing your dialogue. So I was talking about how I keep a journal. So I write to my spiritual master and Prabhupada. I've been doing that for more or less 25 years. And what it allows me to do is to see my internal dialogue on the page, right? I get to see, this is how I'm thinking on the page. And just by having conscious awareness about that, it helps me to change some of those patterns. Because for me, I see this with devotees all the time. Many of us, our internal dialogue, it's counteracting what we're reading in the books. So I may have an internal dialogue, no one loves me, I'm not lovable. And then in the books, Prabhupada is saying Krishna loves everyone, okay? But because my internal dialogue is opposing that, I'm actually counteracting what I'm hearing in the scripture. So just by being aware and by asking people may say, Bhuta Bhavana, you know what? I've noticed that you tend to do this. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but if you were to change this to this, you would be able to make a lot more spiritual advancement. I'm like, dude, I'm all about that. Give it to me. And what's amazing, what's really interesting is when you hear the similar message come from more than one devotee. That's very, very interesting, because then it implies actually it's not just their opinion. Everyone's saying the same thing. Dude, you need to really tune into this one. So when I started the podcast, I was going to call it Anukul Savers on the call. So we had a session together. And my first idea was call it The Real Podcast. And then I had different devotees saying like, Bhuta Bhavana, why are you calling it The Real Podcast? You should name it after yourself. And the reason why I changed the title is because when I got so much feedback, I was like, okay, I understand. Krishna's like, dude, I don't want you to call it this. Change it to the Edanova Podcast. So that's where the magic happens. You're trying to listen out for what Krishna is trying to tell you. And if you take on board what he says, knowing that he loves you more than you love yourself. So if someone who loves you more than you love yourself, and they're the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, if they're giving you a steer and you follow it, it can only be in your best interests. You can't get a better result than following what Krishna says you should do. So that's where it gets exciting. Okay, so those are some thoughts around how we do the feedback thing and how we do it effectively. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I think we had a couple more questions. I know we're coming close to time, but if you're okay, we'll go maybe 10 minutes over.
Yeah. If you got time, I've got time. I'd love to serve you guys. So yeah, let's do this.
So then we'll go to Ram Govinda. He actually had a question. He submitted in the forum, but I think you can go ahead and ask it, Ram.
Sure. So we might have situations where we're around people we may not want to be around, or we'd rather be with somebody else. Like I can think of my life maybe when I was traveling or on trips or this and that. And the thought can be like always, oh, why am I with these people? Why can't I be somewhere else? I'll get so much more out of having a different group right now. Should we have a mentality more to always seek the better association for ourselves, or how can we have a mentality to enjoy the company that we're with right now, even if it's not what we want?
Okay, this is a really good question. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. There's two dynamics that should take place simultaneously. Number one, wherever possible, there's three dynamics. The first one is because we want to make progress in spiritual life, because we want to develop our relationship with Krishna, then whenever we can have association with advanced devotees, we should take it. That's point number one. but that's one of 3 ingredients, okay? So there's not one thing in it separately. So that's one ingredient. Second, we should try to be the higher association for others, okay? That's the second one, okay? And number 3, the third is, this is really important, by the way, as well. We should understand that Krishna is always involved in our lives. So when we're in a certain situation, the question we should be asking ourselves is, what does Krishna want me to learn from this association, right? So how can I extract or grow, and how can I be that servant? So this is why they all come together. 3 flavors all come together. 1, when I have opportunity, I'm trying to get as much advanced association as I can. Number 2, wherever I am, I should try and be that advanced association. And the reason for that is very simple. Otherwise, how do I know that when I'm around people, they're not also there thinking, oh my God, why do I have to be around Bhuta Bhavana, man? Like, oh my God, like, I wish I was somewhere else and, getting some really good association. So we don't want that to think that about us. We should try and be that higher association. And then the third is, always try to see, because we can always learn something. If we're serious, we can always learn something. We can always share something, you see? So Krishna makes arrangement for us to be in certain situations for certain reasons. And we often forget that. There's always an adventure going on, especially if you want to grow. If you want to grow, Krishna's going to work, he's going to organize your diary for you. So wherever you are, it's a chance to give something, a chance to learn something, and there's always opportunity for us to get the higher association. And one of the reasons why we want the advanced association is so that we can become more advanced, so we have more to give. So it's a seamless thread. All 3 kinds of relationships are interconnected with each other. If you've had higher association, that means you can give something more to people, to your peers, to your juniors, etc. Okay? So it's not one thing. It's when there's nothing in your diary, go out to get as much higher association as you can. When you find yourself in circumstances that you're just in, then give as much as you can, be the higher association, and also see what you can learn from them. Because it's like now, I've gained so much from spending time with you guys. It's unreal. I'm recording this conversation and I can listen to the conversation again, because some of the things that you said, I didn't think about. You see, even to be honest, some of the things that I've said to you, it came because I was having your association. And then being very honest, my deities are here. I'm going to show you my deities before we go, by the way. I want you to see them. I love you to take darshan. Anyway, that's another thing. But that point about doing things at the same time, right? So having association, and then also maybe doing service together or reading. I do read with my friends, right? But just when we was having the conversation, it became conscious to me. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's not one or the other. Many of these things you can do simultaneously. You see, many of these things. So people are like, oh, I've got it's time to chant and then time to read. And so, no, why don't you read with your friends? Why not read with your friends? Why not go on the japa walk with your friends? Let's be honest, most of us, if you're chanting with someone else, you're a bit more attentive, right? You can't be looking at your phone when your friend's there chanting with you. It's like, dude, come on now, come on. Put the iPhone down, come on. So it's not one or the other. Usually you can do many of these things together, okay? So that's how I'd answer your question, Ram Govinda. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions, and then I'll show you the deities.
So I think one more question. I think Harini had a question.
My sparring associate, Harini. My associate, we're associates in terms of we work in the same institution. So, yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. This has been like such an incredible class. My question was more about how there are more, I guess, practical ways for us as like the older youth in the TSI community, how we can connect better with each other, and then also how we can find opportunities to connect with the younger, I guess, generation that is coming into our retreats and coming into our programming sessions too.
Wonderful. Yeah, so to be honest, when you said that, immediately something came to mind. So when you were saying that, like I had a vision at that, just at the time you were saying the question. See, even in friendship circles, so someone says, oh, I haven't got time to catch up with all my friends. Now, what are we doing on this call? We've got 37 people on the call. We're all having a conversation. We're all learning from each other at the same time. Sometimes it's just as simple as saying to all your friends, let's jump on a Zoom call together, right? So if you're mutual friends, why have a half an hour call with one person, a half an hour call with another person, a half an hour call? Why not? Let's just all to get together on the same call for 1 hour, and we're all learning from each other. We're all checking in together, right? You're nourishing the relationship. Everyone's hearing, everyone's learning, everyone feels that they're connecting. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And so to your point, Harini, this is why I love speaking to you guys. There's so much we can do, you know? I love coming on these calls because I get the benefit of your collective intelligence. I don't have all the answers. You've read things that I've not read. You've heard classes that I've not heard. But if we come together, Krishna's going to make miracles happen. And I know that you have Krishna in your heart. And I know that when we come together, and I'm sure, how many of you have experienced that? When devotees come together with the right mood, you just get these like insights, inspirations, ideas, and it's just stuff that you couldn't have thought about by yourself, right? So this is how we'll take over the world, dude. This is how we're going to really make amazing things happen in our life and in the life of other people. It's when devotees come together, open-hearted, with the right mood, trying to support each other and build each other up, then you see miracles will happen constantly, right? And this is what we need to do with the younger generation as well, right? But we have to do it, especially putting them in the center. This is my big thing. So I've been studying leadership. I teach leadership. We have loads of different exciting projects that we're involved in, and I'm always intensely excited to understand more about how great leadership looks, how it works, how it feels, how it can be done. And I was reading, I'm studying the Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness book #1. And one of the things that my spiritual mentor says in that book is about taking into account the needs of other people. So to your point, Harini, I think back to when I was young, and I think about the young people who I'm trying to assist, and I always see that what works is to put them in the center. Okay, so speak to them. Okay, where are you at? How's spiritual life going for you? What excites you in spiritual life? Where are the obstacles, right? What would be an exciting spiritual experience? I remember Bhakti Charamaj once when he came to the UK, they had a boat trip. We had a boat trip actually for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. We were raising some funds for him. It was just another exciting way. So Kirtan on the boat, on the Thames, right? So everyone's on the boat, this, you know, really sleek, like high-end boat. Everyone's on it. So they're doing Kirtan, but it's a new experience. You know, it's a new way of doing things. So I would encourage you, try different things, but in consultation with the youth. Think about what would be exciting for them, right? Road trips, right? Maybe a road trip and have some KC adventure. Maybe they go abroad or go somewhere and like revamp a temple. Maybe they do a big festival. Maybe they... Yeah, I didn't do it, but I was going to do murder mystery at Bhaktivedanta Manor, right? So I was going to take this whole murder mystery thing and then do like a whole whodunit, right? So you have the devotees, they have different characters, and the characters represent different things about Krishna consciousness, you know? And so the devotees were in groups, and they had to, and so we're going to stay over at the manor, and then the next morning, someone's not there. It's all prearranged. We know who's not there. And they just see, and had this like visual. And the visual, you know, like on the murder mysteries, and they have like this outline of the person's body, right? So I had this visual. You have the outline of the person's body with the bead bag in their hand, right? That little extra touch. And then they have to go through like a whole kind of adventure to figure out who did it, how was it done, you know, and you have different people. Anyway, you get the point. Let's keep it alive. We haven't even touched upon the possibilities in Krishna consciousness. There's all kinds of exciting stuff that we can do. But we just need to come together and say, okay, let's share some ideas. Let's brainstorm. Let's just do something exciting in Krishna consciousness for the young people, with the young people, you know? And I was telling the guys before the call, let's explore what other religions are doing. You may find that the Christians who've been around longer than we have, they got some exciting stuff that they do with youth. If it works, let's take it. You know, I was speaking to one friend of mine in the UK, and there was a big Christian concert that happened, and it was an American Christian group. I think it was an evangelical group. They did a concert in London, and they sold out like a big stadium, the O2 in London. It was sold out. I mean, it was rap, there was like gospel, like rock, all kinds, and it was packed out, jam packed. And my friend was thinking like, we're gonna do something like that. We're gonna get the funding, hire out the stadium, advertise it, do something on a large scale like that. Obviously, I think they're going to start small and then build up. And I was thinking, yeah, that's a great thing to do. So the youth means dynamic, right? You guys are young, don't get me wrong. And also the people just the age below you. It means dynamic. Have fun in Christian consciousness. What you want to do with youth is make memories. Exciting, attractive, inspiring memories. You know, because those memories will fuel them now and fuel them in the future, you know? And you see the flip side. Let's be honest, you sometimes see devotees who are older and they're a bit dry, right? Because they got no exciting memories to draw upon. It's just kind of like, nah, this is dry, dude. It's dry. I mean, it's dry like my cream crackers. It's dry, you know? And you just need to kind of get away fast. We don't become that person, right? So let's explore, innovate, try different things, look and see what other groups are doing. They don't even have to be devotees. There may be youth groups that you can find online, and they're doing some exciting stuff that can be tailored towards a KC agenda. Let's go for it. And if you find anything that's crazy that works, let me know. We'll pass it on to other people as well. Let's have devotional service. Is Shushukam, is joyfully performed. You should be happy in Krishna consciousness. We want to see the devotees happy, dynamic, excited, adventurous in spiritual life. That's our job. And if we do that, you make progress automatically, because you feel this is just so incredible, it's so wonderful, it's so exciting. Where's the next adventure?